What happens when a teacher tries to humiliate a student, only to realize she made the biggest mistake of her life? Jaden Carter was just another kid, ignored and underestimated. But when his racist music teacher forced him to play the piano as a joke, no one expected what happened next. His fingers unleashed a talent so breathtaking that the entire school was left in shock. But his success came at a cost, and Ms. Whitaker wasn't done with him yet. How far would she go to break him? And could Jaden rise above it all? Watch till the end and tell us. Where are you watching from? Comment below. It was just another Monday at Riverwood Academy, a private school where the reputation mattered the most, and where nonconformity was the unwritten law. The students walked into Ms. Whitaker's music class, most absently staring at their phones rather than paying attention to the lesson. But today there was a newcomer, Jaden Carter. He walked in quietly, shoulders slightly slumped, hands tucked into the pockets of an oversized hoodie. He was unlike any other student there. Designer clothes and accessories were not his thing, and, most importantly, he was one of the rare black kids in an environment of unquestionable privilege. Ms. Whitaker's eyes narrowed at the sight of him. She was strict, cold with a sharp tongue that hurt deeper than any insult. Tales of her favoritism were well known, without a shred of doubt. And Jaden? He simply did not fit into her notion of perfection for Riverwood. And the whispers began. Who's he? What is he doing here? Does he even know how to read music? Jaden paid them no mind. He had heard it all before. Ms. Whitaker clapped her hands for silence. We are doing classical piano today. Each one of you is going to take his or her turn playing the piece that's on the board. Her high heels clicked with every step as she walked past the grand piano standing alone in the middle of the room. She turned to Jaden at last. A smirk crept onto her face. Jaden, she said slowly as if his name had a bad aftertaste. Why don't you go first? A few students chuckled under their breaths. Jaden did not move. He walked to the piano with his face still. You do know how to play, don't you? Asked Ms. Whitaker, her tone dripping with condescension. Jaden shrugged. A little. More laughter. Ms. Whitaker folded her arms. Go on then. Show us what you've got. Jaden sat down, his fingers hovering over the keys. He took a big breath. And then, silence. The room waited. A few students exchanged glances, expecting him to fail. Then Jaden's fingers moved. One note rang out. Then another. Then another. And then, somehow, the room wasn't laughing anymore. His hands flew across the keys, weaving together a melody so complex that it was hauntingly beautiful, and the air in the room felt electric about it. Notes cascaded like waterfalls, each one being more complicated than the previous one. His expression never changed, his body swaying a little from the rhythm, completely lost in the music. The students were petrified. Even the ones who had mocked him before were gaping in disbelief. There went Ms. Whitaker's smirk. Her hands were fiends at her sides. And then, as abruptly as it had begun, the music stopped. Silence. Jaden lifted his hands from the keys and looked up. Was that good enough? No one spoke. Ms. Whitaker's face was unreadable. Clearing her throat, she forced herself into some semblance of calm. That was an interesting interpretation, she said stiffly. But let's stick to the sheet music next time. Most importantly, Jaden did not argue. He stood up and walked back to his seat, ignoring all of the shocked gazes of his classmates. But that was just the beginning. For the next few weeks, the situation turned strange. Rumors spread about Jaden's talents. Once, his name was but a whisper in the corridors. Now all his name does is instill fear. The teachers were beginning to talk about Jaden with a different tone too. Except Ms. Whitaker. She hated it. She hated being proved wrong. She hated that a boy like Jaden, a boy she had written off before he even picked up a piano, made her feel stupid. She swore to ruin him. Next came whip assignments, pieces her best students would have problems with. Never mind that Jaden's playing was impeccable. She found fault with everything. She made it a point to call on Jaden every single day first just to watch him squirm. Jaden never said a word. He played everything she put in front of him, with perfection, and that made her angrier. It was soon too much. After that, she just lost it. The winter recital was underway. Parents, teachers, and students filled the auditorium, chatting and waiting for the performances to begin. Ms. Whitaker spent weeks preparing her students, and tonight should have been her crowning moment. Until Jaden? No, not part of it. At least, not until she made the announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, her voice echoed through the hall. Before we begin, we have a special performance. A last-minute addition. She turned and looked at Jaden with a devilish smile. Jaden, why don't you come up here and play for us? The concert hall gave a buckle of silence. This wasn't in the program. Jaden wasn't even on the program. He hesitated. She cocked her head to the side. Unless, of course, you don't feel ready? Some giggles. And it was then that Jaden understood. It was a setup. She wanted him to choke, to make an ass in front of reinforced witnesses, to justify her on-the-spot assumptions. Jaden inhaled deeply. He got up and walked toward the piano. The moment he sat, he did the unexpected. He closed his eyes. Then came the playing. Not just any piece. His own. Raw. Emotional. Telling a story of struggle, pain, and resilience. Ms. Whitaker, for the first time in her life, couldn't say a word. Stunned gasps erupted from the audience. Some were teary-eyed. The final note rang, and the hall erupted. Jaden rose calmly. Ms. Whitaker looked pale, defeated. As Jaden strode past her, he stopped just long enough to ask, "Was that good enough?" Then he was gone. And Ms. Whitaker never underestimated him again. The sound of the applause resonated throughout the auditorium, but Jaden would not remain on the stage to soak it all in. He walked off stage and stood there, his heart pounding not because of fear but because of the moment. He had won. Not just for a performance. Not for just a night. He had won against her. Against the doubt. Against the quiet, suffocating weights of being underestimated all his life. But at the edge of the stage, he caught a glimpse of Ms. Whitaker. She was transfixed as if a spell had been cast on her. The mouth was pressed into a thin line with hands clutching the program so tightly that the paper crinkled. The expression on her eyes was not just shock but something deeper. Something uglier. Rage. And that's when Jaden knew this wasn't finished. The following morning felt weirdly different. Students, most of whom he barely knew, acknowledged him as he walked through school. Some gave him pats on the back. Others mumbled his name like it was some other tale. "Dude, that was so crazy last night. I swear I've never seen Whitaker like that before. You broke her down, dude." Jaden barely replied. He just nodded, fixing the straps of his backpack. Fame was not his ambition. Survival was. But from the instant he entered music class, he felt the palpable change in the air. Ms. Whitaker stood at the head of the class, wearing a carefully neutral expression. But the moment she perceived him, she allowed her lips to crinkle into that cold smile. "Ah, Mr. Carter," she began, in a tone silky with false cordiality. "So happy to see you grace us with your presence today." Jaden slid into his seat, refusing to respond. She turned to her class, tapping her nails against the podium. "I was thinking about last night's, exhibition," she continued. "And while it did indeed catch us all off guard, let's be reminded about the matter of discipline." Her eyes were fixated on Jaden. "Raw talent without the framework amounts to nothing," she said. "And anyone who disregards the curriculum would find themselves struggling to keep up." The message was directed and to the point. It was war. The following weeks were torture. To erase Jaden's performance from the face of this earth was Ms. Whitaker's one and only goal. More work was piled upon him. Assignments were changed suddenly and on a whim. She handed him the hardest pieces, all the while tearing apart each and every note. "Your tempo lacks consistency. Your dynamics lack conviction. No, maybe you just got lucky last night." But Jaden bent not. He practiced harder, he played louder, he pushed himself more than he had ever done before. And the more he resisted, the more noticed he became. People would stand to defend him who had never really spoken to him before. Even the shy ones, like Claire, the one who sat quietly in the back row. "Why is it always the hardest pieces for him?" Claire confronted one day. Ms. Whitaker's eyes flared. "Do you challenge my methods?" Claire faltered but held her ground. "What I'm saying, it doesn't seem fair." And not just Claire. By the end of that month, Jaden was not merely a student. He had become a cause. A reminder that no matter how hard Ms. Whitaker tried, she would never erase him. And this drove her absolutely mad. Was it just minutes later that the closure fell on all? The state music competition. The greatest in the land. A full scholarship to the best music conservatory for the winner. A chance in a lifetime. Ms. Whitaker? She had already picked the Riverwood competitor. Lucas Harper. Her pet. The golden boy. The one she had been preparing for the last several years. Well, the plans were shaken. After the Jaden recital, the scrutiny of the board began. The principal, the parents, the sponsors. And they wanted to see Jaden compete. Ms. Whitaker fought. He's not prepared, she fought. Lucas has been preparing for this years long. Jaden. He doesn't even know how to read sheet music properly. The board would not buy that. Then let them compete against each other, the principal said. Whoever wins goes. And the last battle was thus declared. In a fortnight, the competition would commence. Ms. Whitaker trained Lucas hard. Private lessons. Extra coaching. She made sure he was perfect. And Jaden? He trained himself. He practiced in the practice room at night long after everyone else had gone home. His fingers had bled from the hours spent at the piano. But he was not just practicing. He was definitely preparing. Not just to win. To finish this. The day of the competition came. The entire school witnessed. Lucas was up first. He played perfectly. Every note in place. Every movement controlled. He was a machine, flawless, calculated, polished. A satisfied Ms. Whitaker smiled. Then it was Jaden's turn. Breathing once. He entered to the piano and did the most unexpected. He closed his eyes and let the music flow from his soul. This was not just music. It was rebellion. With every note, a story was told. His story of being ignored, mistrusted, set aside, of rising, of fighting, of becoming an unstoppable force. Complete silence prevailed throughout the room. The air ceased to move within Ms. Whitaker's lungs. And when the last note finally faded, the judges stood, clapping. Jaden won. Ms. Whitaker would never see him the same way again. Because she knew she had lost. Not only the competition, but the war. And Jaden? He became something she could never contain. A legend. What would you have done in Jaden's position? Does talent overcome bias? Or was Jaden lucky to be noticed? How do you feel about Ms. Whitaker? Has she learned her lesson? Or will she try again to take down Jaden? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one of them. And if the story was enjoyable to you, then subscribe to the channel. More inspiring stories with a lot of emotion and drama are waiting for you. So do not miss.